Hello, I'm Jeff Van Treese, and this is Mobilized News. We welcome you to our show. As our guest today is Rabbi Barry Silver. We welcome Barry back to the show. Barry is an attorney. He's actually uh, been involved in an abortion rights case here in Florida, challenging a law that would prevent second trimester abortions. So Barry also has been honored as the first male recipient of the Feminist of the Year award from the his local chapter of the National Organization of Women. And Barry is also the subject of a new documentary called Under God, which is premiering at the Sundance Film Festival in 2023. So, Barry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here, Jeff. Always enjoy speaking with you. You bring up great topics and you handle them in a very educated, sophisticated way. So it's great to have this opportunity. I'm used to sound bites where I get 10 seconds, and with you, I get to share some more in-depth thoughts.
It's one of the great privileges of this show is we get to really go in depth with our guests. So I really appreciate you coming on. So there's a lot to talk about, and I know you've done a lot of work. You know, as a clergyman yourself, people might find it ironic that one of your biggest passions in life's mission is to get politics out of the political system and the courts, and really honor our founding fathers' intention that church and state be separate. So there's just so much, going on in that we've seen where there's been a poisoning of the public discourse by politicians with regard to a lot of really bad bigotry that, at least in some sense, at least originates from religion. So let's start with the anti-Semitism piece. So, of course, we know that not only President Trump, who we in the last few weeks has famously wined and dined with white supremacists, but there's also a deafening silence from his Republican allies, as well as many of those in the religious community to condemn this. So I was wondering if you could share your thoughts on that.
Well, I practice a form of Judaism called cosmic Judaism, which was envisioned by Albert Einstein, who said the religion of the future will be a cosmic religion. And so I invoke science and religion. So Einstein, Carl Sagan, these are my heroes. And Carl Sagan said that once somebody has been bamboozled, it's really hard for them to get out from under it because they don't want to admit that they've been bamboozled. So they just keep going along with more and more outrageous things. And I think that's the problem with the Trump supporters. They have clung vigorously to defending Trump. And each time he does something else, like the frog in the boiling water, they keep defending it. And now you have, ironically, Jewish people defending someone who's obviously anti-Semitic, who houses not just anti-Semites, but on Holocaust Remembrance Day, he didn't even mention the Jews. The Holocaust was about the Jews. He doesn't mention them. And then when pointed out to him, well, too bad. He says there's good and bad on both sides. When people are marching in Charlottesville saying the Jews will not replace us, he calls the Jews disloyal, says they only love him because of his money, advances stereotypes against the Jews, and does a lot of things that are very, very harmful to Jewish interests. And you still have Jewish people defending him, which only goes to show that Trump was right when he said I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and my deluded, brainwashed followers will continue to back me. But obviously the problem goes way beyond Trump. He's only galvanized and metastasized some of the bad influences of society. He did do something honest, though, when he descended the escalator to announce that he was going to run for president. He did foreshadow the direction that he would be taking America. He just didn't say how far down he would take us. So let's talk about anti-Semitism for a minute. It's very interesting that I think it was Pogo who said, we have met the enemy and it is us. So I'm going to share a unique perspective on anti-Semitism, which may be very controversial to some, but that's okay. I don't mind. I'll just share my thoughts, and then others can evaluate it and maybe contact me or contact you, Jeff, with their opinions. So anti-Semitism invokes the replacement theory. We hear a lot about replacement theory, conspiracy theory. The original replacement theory, the most devastating and lethal, was when the Christian scriptures proclaimed that they had replaced the Jews as God's chosen, that God chose the Jews messed up by rejecting his son, and now the Christians are chosen. The Muslims came along afterwards and said, no, now we're the chosen, and now the Christians and the Jews are both infidels. And so we're arguing over ancient literature, sometimes killing each other over ancient literature, arguing over whose imaginary father in the sky loves them both. It's sibling rivalry going amok among the three Abrahamic faiths who look to Abraham as their father and God as the ultimate father in the sky. As someone who embraces science, I reject all of it. I don't believe in a personal God. Certainly, if there was one, he would be a better parent than to choose favorites. And the whole concept is patently absurd. The chosen people concept sadly comes from the Jewish people. Our ancestors concocted it in Jewish scripture. Now, to just show that it wasn't a completely malevolent design, the Jewish people, to our credit, believed that we were chosen to serve, to be a light to the nations, to try to implement a world of peace and justice. So we were chosen for a holy purpose to do good things. But our ancestors also interpreted that to mean that they had license and sometimes were commanded by God to kill non-believers in the Holy Land. This horrible concept metastasized in Christianity and Islam, where they feel obliged to kill non-believers wherever they're found all over the planet. So you had Christianity advancing with the sword, Constantine's sword, actually, he was the first, conquering nations and making them Christian. Then you have Islam all over the world with the sword, conquering people and making them Muslim. And you have the Jews who conceived the concept, who are far weaker in number now, because we don't have that missionary zeal. And now we're bearing the brunt of this concept that we brought to the world. So I'm going to say, as the eldest brother, the Jewish people, as a rabbi, I'm going to say I repudiate, I reject this chosen people concept. It's nonsense, it's primitive, it's tribal, it's barbaric in its expression. It should be soundly rejected. I also reject any belief in a personal God. There's no evidence for it, and all the evidence against it. As Christopher Hitchens said, if God wrote the Bible, let's just hope he was having a bad day. And there is nothing sacred about killing other people because they disagree with you. And there's nothing sacred about an intolerant God who rewards his people with heaven and sends free thinkers to hell. These ideas should be soundly rejected and cast to the dustbin of history.